If someone asks me which startup is Korea's Oppenheimer in the startup world, I would point straight at this company. Last year, they pulled in about $17 million in revenue. Not bad for a startup, but not exactly a unicorn number either, right? And yet, they just closed a $120 million on Series C. With their round, they became Korea's very first AI unicorn. Their IPO target up to $3.4 billion. Wait, how does a company with just $17 million in revenue get treated like it's worth $3.4 billion? That math doesn't really add up, right? And it gets even weirder when you look at Saju. Because normally there are two things that deep tech startups still absolutely needs to survive. Two non-negotiables. And this company, it has neither. A threat like this should have landed out a long time ago. It should have been dead in the water. But instead, it's doing the complete opposite. Today, we are going to talk about Upstage. Korea's the first AI unicorn now heading toward an IPO in 2027. And we are gonna dig into the Saju, find out what made this company Korea's Oppenheimer. Let's get into it. Hi everyone, I'm Minsil. You are listening to Deep Tech Fortune Teller. Okay, so let's start with what Upstage actually does. Do you remember the question I threw on earlier? Why a company doing $70 million in revenue gets treated like it's worth $3.4 billion? We'll come back to that in the Saju section. But first, let's just look at what this company actually does. They were founded back in 2020. Their whole pitch is that they're a full-stack AI company, LLMs, OCR, search, agents, or bundled into one. These days, people put them right up there with Naver and Kakao, Korea's two tech giants. In fact, you will hear people in the industry says Naver, Kakao, Upstage almost like it's one name. And that's frankly pretty wild. They acquired Daum, the portal that got spun off from Kakao. A started buying a major portal. That just doesn't happen. And the reason it matters, it's a signal. Search engines, their own models, they're vertically integrating all three into a single AI stacks. So how does these things actually make money? There are three revenue streams. First, B2B AI solutions. They're selling LLM-powered call centers, document automations, search upgrades. And their edge is they already had a strong OCR and document understanding know-how. They just layered LLMs on top. Their client base skews legacy, which are finance, manufacturing, public sector. And they've already built up enough of the track records that they get name checked in government discussion about which AI companies deserve concentrated support. Second, B2C platform play, built on the Daum acquisition. Acquiring Daum basically handed them a massive traffic base to experiment with AI search and content recommendation. They are feeding search queries and content logs back into the LLMs, sharpen it, and reworking the app and commerce side too. Basically trying to carve out a brand new category, an AI native portal. In a search market that Naver, Kakao, and Google have dominated in Korea for years, right? And so the AI model and platform layer. They're pushing their own LLM and multimodal models out through open APIs, more of PaaS play. Their whole message is we're unifying search, agents, and models. They're restructuring the entire product lineup around that idea. Partnering with cloud and on-premise players, both domestic and international, and really leaning into this positioning as the homegrown alternative for enterprise. But here's the thing, and this is not just a growth story about one startup. There's a bigger picture. Remember Korean sovereign AI push? The government ran this whole vetting process. Could a company actually build a foundation model from scratch, independently? In that case, Upstage passed. And now they're seen as one of the bets Korea's making to actually compete. Catch up with the world's AI leaders, the US, China, and Europe. They're also getting invited into rooms with global tech leaders too, meeting with NVIDIA's Jensen Huang, that kind of networking. At this point, it's not really fair to call just a startup anymore. It's becoming something much bigger than a startup. It's now part of Korea's national AI strategy. So bottom line, revenue still small, but government, big conglomerates, global tech giants, everyone's watching this company right now. All right, now let's actually get into way this company was able to build this kind of momentum. Time for Saju verdict. Upstage 101. First thing that jumps out, nobody's got their back. This is a company that has to prove itself through nothing but technical excellence and hard data. Nobody's backing them. The chart couldn't make it much clearer. Their backing element sits at 0%. Zero. Which means every opportunity had to be earned, not given. But the chart also shows a decent amount of the control energy. That's not some both barking orders. It's more like an invisible rank system, but entirely on a technical mastery and logical rigor. Think engineers pulling all-nighters just to make sure the data checks out, not smooth talkers. Serious independence, almost being told what to do. Their pride comes entirely from their own expertise. You know what it means. There's a risk in this combo though. No outside backing means they struggle to absorb outside criticism or shift from the market. Instead, they keep validating themselves over and over again. Like, let's double check this one more time. And sometimes that means missing the window when the market's actually ready. The real danger of getting trapped by your own sense of the technical superiority. Paralyzed by perfectionism. Stuck admiring the engine instead of driving it. Second thing, this is an engineering hub obsessed with core technology, not the packaging around it. Their pure energy completely dominates the chart. Not copying trends, building the core technology from scratch every time. Marketing is barely on the radar. But the flip side, their market sense element, the one that reads what people actually want right now, that's zero. Real risk of falling into the classic trap. Our tech is best in the world. The market just doesn't get it yet. Technical arrogance, basically. Third thing, survivor instincts, bottom line superhuman. Results? That's very chalks. That much peer attitude puts them into red territory. Built different. Most startups die in that early cash crunch. This one just grinds through it. But their output elements barely registers. A massive amount of technical capability is sitting inside and barely any door for it to work out as revenue. We are working around the clock and not just seeing much show up on the outside. And here's the important part. If they'd gotten impatient, jumped at some cheap quick cash business just to survive, those sharp internal blades would turn on each other. Real risk of the whole thing blowing apart from the inside. Looks like they didn't that bait. Lucky. So what's the actual weapon here? Zoom out, and you get a startup with a rock-solid center of gravity. Outside of capital, big conglomerate pressure, none of it rattled them. But they're not reckless either. That self-belief, that steady momentum, that's the real weapon. Keep doing what they're doing, not panicking about revenue, deepening the technical moat, testing the market in small doses. And this is a chart that breaks through the bottlenecks. Could genuinely become an apex predator here. So where does actually money come from? Given all this, how should this company actually make money? Going after the mass market and scrapping together small chains through broad marketing? That's not their game. What does fit is leveraging world-class technology to land a handful of massive deals with governments and major conglomerates. Bring in a huge amount of cash all at once. Number one, deep tech licensing. Forget the finished product. The real business is owning the technology underneath it, then monetizing it through exclusive licensing deals or outright technology transfer to global players. The payoff? Massive upfront licensing fee worth tens or even hundreds of millions. Route number two, national strategy programs and major public sector contracts. Zero backing means they shouldn't expect government subsidies to simply fall into their lap. I can see their contra power. That's exactly what makes them strong at winning contracts through demonstrated technology capability. Large government and public sector projects with upfront payments and milestone-based funding, that's where stable cash flow come from. Bottom line, for this chart to make money, it's not about opening consumers' wallet. It's about opening the vault of big corporations and governments. So how's the next 5 years going to be? Where does this go from here? Here's how I'd frame it. Imagine Oppenheimer's work, locking away in some lab in Los Alamos, and then serious capital and major institution finally got behind it, and it destinated 2026-27. This is when the technology finally find the people with the power to deploy it. Big conglomerates, governments, and global institutions. And that's when the licensing mega deals could start coming together. This is a company that's never really made money through broad consumer marketing. Instead, they started embedding their technology directly into enterprise infrastructures through large-scale contracts and exclusive licensing deals. And that alone could transform their entire financial picture almost overnight. 2028 brings a different kind of energy. And well, after 2 years of growth, the company is bigger now, which means there's friction brewing internally. You can probably expect a few engineering ego to start clashing. This is less about expanding and more about holding things together and getting their internal house in order. 2029-2030, this is where that narrow exit finally blows wide open. The output bottleneck we talked about, gone. B2B pipelines stabilize, everyone starts recognizing them as a market leader. With more capital on hand, they start acquiring smaller AI or deep tech players themselves. This is the stretch where founders and early investors finally start cashing out. Real exit, finally. So here's the bottom line, and 2026 is the real turning point. If they can break through that bottleneck with solid contracts this year, the next 5 years, this becomes a company that can weather almost any downturn. A genuine dominant tech giant. Alright, and last thing, from an investor's perspective, if you go into this one chasing the tech alone, you might end up drowning in the same R&D swamp. That's not the entire point. The real signal? Signed enterprise contracts. That's when that becomes a real opportunity. So 2 things worth tracking before you write a check. Is there a system in place to provide a healthy pushback to the founder and core engineering team? And have they actually gotten ink on a contract with a major client? If both boxes are checked, that's basically the whole ball game for whether this investment works out. Alright, let's wrap up today's episode. I describe this company as a potential apex predator. It's a company powerful enough to dominate its ecosystem. That kind of power can feel dangerous, but dangerous to whom exactly? Oppenheimer himself, he started out wanting to explore science, pure curiosity really. But that dive got swept up into something political, and it ended up opening the door to an era where the whole world could end at any moment. He lived to see the atomic bomb used in Japan. So the devastating loss of life, he carried that guilt for the rest of his life. But here's the part I want to sit with for a second. From Korea's perspective, that same devastating invention also coincided with Korea's liberation after more than 3 decades under Japanese colonial rule. I mean, instant freedom. Dario Amodei, Anthropic CEO, he's actually warned about this before. That AI, if we used the wrong way, could threaten our lives on a similar scale. And if AI really does become that consequential, companies like Upstage could end up playing a much bigger role than we imagine today. And here's something kind of wild. The movie Oppenheimer opened in Korean theater on August 15th, which is Korea's Liberation Day, like Independence Day. That wasn't a coincidence. It was a deliberate choice, and it gave the film a very different meaning here. So this nuclear-grade technology Upstage is building. At first glance, sure, it looks like a dangerous future predator. But the more I sit with it, I think this might actually become the technology that helps Korea reduce its dependence on global tech over time. I mean, real AI independence. That's the future this chart seems to pointing toward. Alright, this is the end of today's episode, and it was Minsol, and this is Deep Tech Fortune Teller. See you next week!